Commander Zyx'thor's peripheral antennae twitched in irritation as he reviewed the latest batch of reports streaming across his neural interface. The holographic displays surrounding his command pod pulsed with an angry red, reflecting both the status of their invasion and his mounting frustration. "Impossible," he muttered, mandibles clicking in what his species considered a laugh. "Simply impossible." The reports before him detailed yet another failed attempt to establish a foothold on the backward little planet called Earth. 3 of his best scout ships, equipped with technology that could reduce mountains to dust, had somehow been outmaneuvered by primitive chemical-propelled aircraft. "Commander?" His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vexenar, approached with characteristic caution. "The Council requests an update on the situation." Zyx'thor's upper eyes focused on the battle statistics while his lower set continued scanning the casualty reports. "Tell them it's a temporary setback. These humans are barely into their atomic age. They still burn fossil fuels for void's sake." The massive window of his command chamber offered a spectacular view of their fleet. 200 ships of the mighty Zar'kax Empire, each one capable of devastating an entire continent. The nearest human ships were pathetic in comparison, little more than metal tubes with primitive chemical propulsion. "Perhaps," Vexenar ventured, "we underestimated—" "Nonsense!" Zyx'thor cut him off, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the red emergency lights. "Look at our technological superiority. Our smallest fighter carries enough firepower to level their largest cities. Our shields can withstand their most powerful weapons. Their communication systems are so primitive, they still use radio waves." He pulled up a holographic display of Earth's military capabilities. "See, no faster than light travel, no quantum communications, no plasma weapons. They're children playing at war with sticks and stones." The commander's antennae straightened with pride as he gestured to their fleet's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Nearly 15 kilometers of advanced alloys and energy weapons, it represented the pinnacle of Zar'kax military might. Somewhere far below, on that blue-green marble of a planet, humans were probably staring up at it in terror. "Send in the 4th wave," he ordered, already composing his victory speech in his mind. "This time, target their military installations in what they call North America. Show them what real power looks like." As Vexenar hurried away to relay the orders, Zyx'thor allowed himself a moment of smug satisfaction. Sure, the humans had gotten lucky a few times, but luck always runs out in the face of superior firepower. It was simply a matter of time before these primitives learned their place in the galaxy. If only he knew how wrong he was. 3 solar cycles earlier, the diplomatic mission had seemed like a mere formality. Commander Zyx'thor recalled watching the recorded footage for the 100th time, still unable to comprehend how things had gone so spectacularly wrong. The diplomatic vessel had landed precisely where instructed, an open area near one of their larger population centers called Geneva. Ambassador Zar'kax, adorned in ceremonial phosphorescent robes, had emerged with an honor guard of 8 warriors. Everything followed standard first contact protocols, exactly as they had done with 17 other species. "Your planet now falls under the protection of the Zar'kax Empire," the ambassador had announced through the universal translator. "Surrender your military assets and submit to our benevolent rule, and you shall be granted the privilege of serving as a protectorate state." The human response had been unexpected. Instead of immediate capitulation, the only logical response when faced with vastly superior technology, the humans had laughed. Actually, laughed. Their representative, some local authority called a Secretary General, had smiled and said something that would haunt Zyx'thor's nightmares. "With all due respect, Ambassador, go fuck yourself." The footage showed Zar'kax's confusion, his phosphorescent robes dimming slightly. "Perhaps the translation matrix is malfunctioning. You do understand that we can reduce your cities to ash." Another human wearing what they called a military uniform had stepped forward. "And you understand that the moment you try will make you regret ever learning our planet existed." The arrogance, the sheer audacity, these primitive beings who hadn't even colonized their own moon properly, threatening the mighty Zar'kax Empire. What happened next still defied explanation. When Ambassador Zar'kax had ordered a demonstration, just a small fusion blast over an unpopulated area, the humans had somehow anticipated it. The energy beam never reached the atmosphere. Instead, something had intercepted it. Something the Empire's sensors hadn't even detected. Then came the humans' counter-demonstration. Within seconds, every single one of the ambassador's honor guard dropped dead. No energy signatures, no projectiles, no warning, just 8 elite warriors. Their nervous systems simultaneously shut down by something the Empire's medical experts still couldn't identify. The ambassador had retreated, but not before the uniformed human delivered one final message. "That was a chemical agent you never saw coming. Imagine what else we have that your sensors can't detect. Leave now or find out." Zix Thor's antennae drooped as he paused the footage. His species prided themselves on their logical, methodical approach to conquest. But these humans, they defied logic. Who threatens a superior force? Who laughs in the face of annihilation? "Commander," an analyst interrupted his thoughts. "We've detected unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." "Define unusual," Zix Thor snapped, all 4 eyes focusing on the new data stream. "That's just it, sir. They keep changing. Every time we adjust our sensors to track them, they shift. It's like they're learning our detection methods in real time." A cold feeling settled in Zix Thor's thoracic cavity. The humans were primitive, yes, but something about them felt wrong. Their responses didn't follow any known behavioral patterns. Their tactics ignored basic strategic doctrine. Even their threats seemed to carry a hint of anticipation, as if they were almost eager for conflict. "Sir," the analyst pressed, "should we proceed with the 4th wave attack?" Zix Thor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Yes," he declared, pushing aside his unease, "but double the shield frequencies on all ships and run continuous spectrum analysis on their defensive systems." As the analyst hurried away, Zix Thor couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something fundamental about these humans, something important, something dangerous. The first scout ship went dark over what humans called the Pacific Ocean. One moment, the Stellar Vanguard was transmitting routine patrol data. The next, complete silence. The ship's quantum beacon, designed to function even if the vessel was completely destroyed, had simply vanished. "Impossible," Zix Thor had declared when informed. "Nothing can disable a quantum beacon. Nothing." The second loss came 18 Earth hours later. The Shadow Seeker, pride of the reconnaissance fleet, disappeared while investigating something the humans called a cargo ship. The vessel's last transmission mentioned boarding procedures, then abrupt sensor confusion, and finally a garbled message about human laughter. But it was the third loss that truly began to shake the commander's confidence. The Light of Dawn had been their most advanced stealth vessel, equipped with technology that made it virtually undetectable to primitive human sensors. Its mission was simple: observe human military installations from orbit and relay targeting data for the main invasion force. Instead, they watched in horror as humans somehow not only detected it, but trapped it in an elaborate net of space debris. Pieces of their own destroyed satellites, arranged in a complex 3-dimensional grid, had created a maze that the ship's AI couldn't navigate fast enough. "Show me the tactical replay," Zix Thor demanded, his crystalline exoskeleton crackling with stress. "Again!" The holographic display illuminated his command pod, showing the Light of Dawn's final moments. The humans had somehow predicted exactly where the ship would attempt to evade, herding it into what seemed like random debris paths until... "Freeze playback," his antennae twitched violently. "There, what is that?" The image zoomed in on what appeared to be a primitive nuclear device strapped to a piece of satellite debris. The humans had turned their own space junk into weapons, creating a minefield that adapted to their quarry's movement patterns. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexena's voice quavered slightly, "the fleet captains are requesting an emergency council." Of course they were. 3 ships lost to a pre-FTL civilization. It was unprecedented, embarrassing, concerning. The emergency meeting proved even more disturbing. Captain after captain reported bizarre human tactics that defied military logic. They used their own atmospheric aircraft as missiles, their pilots showing no regard for self-preservation. They deployed electronic warfare that somehow predicted and countered Zar'kax encryption algorithms. Most disturbingly, they seemed to be learning, adapting, and improving their tactics with each encounter. "They're testing us," Captain Yarel Manex of the Sunset Fury declared, her antennae rigid with anxiety. "Each engagement reveals more about our capabilities while concealing their own." "Nonsense," Zix Thor countered, but with less conviction than before. "They're primitives who got lucky. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Is it? Another captain activated a holographic display. Watch this footage from the Shadow Seeker's final moments. The recording showed human soldiers boarding the scout ship. Standard procedure right until the moment the humans encountered their first security barrier. Instead of trying to hack it or disable it, they sang at it. Actually sang. The crystalline structure of the barrier, designed to be impervious to any known form of attack, had resonated with their voices and shattered. They're not fighting the way an advancing civilization should, Urelmix continued. They're fighting like they've been waiting for us, Vexenar finished quietly. Like they've spent their entire history preparing for this moment. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans' erratic tactics, their seemingly suicidal courage, their bizarre technological jumps that ignored normal development patterns, it all painted a picture that none of them wanted to acknowledge. Increase shields on all remaining scout ships, Zix Thor ordered, trying to mask his growing unease, and send them out in pairs from now on. We need more data before the main assault. As the captains filed out, he found himself staring at the tactical display of Earth. Such a small, insignificant planet, so primitive, so technologically backward, and yet they had lost 3 of their best ships without the humans even seeming to try. Commander Zyx'thor's antennae lay flat against his skull as he absorbed the intelligence report. What had started as a routine analysis of human military capabilities had evolved into something far more disturbing. This can't be correct, he muttered, mandibles clicking rapidly. Cross-reference these statistics. The AI confirmed what he didn't want to believe. Unlike every other known species, humans hadn't developed their weapons in a logical progression. They had somehow jumped from primitive projectile weapons to splitting atoms in less than a century. Their technological advancement didn't follow any predictable pattern. Display their major conflicts, he ordered, and immediately regretted it. The holographic display filled with centuries of human warfare, each conflict more brutal than the last. While other species typically developed more humane ways of fighting as they advanced, humans had gone the opposite direction. They had turned their own planet's resources into weapons. They had weaponized the weather, sound, light, and even their own bodies. Focus on their adaptation rate, he commanded, his thoracic cavity tightening as the data streamed past. What he saw defied explanation. During something they called World War II, humans had gone from primitive propeller aircraft to jet engines in mere years. Their nuclear weapons had evolved from simple fission devices to hydrogen bombs in months, not decades. Every time they faced a new threat, they didn't just overcome it, they absorbed it, improved it, and turned it back on their enemies. Sir, his analyst interrupted, you need to see this psychological profile. The new data made his exoskeleton bristle. Humans didn't just accept casualties, they expected them. They didn't just face death, they laughed at it. Their entertainment was filled with scenarios of alien invasions, and instead of being traumatized by such thoughts, they enjoyed them. Show me their response to superior forces, he ordered, dreading what he'd find. The results were worse than he feared. Humans had a bizarre tendency to fight harder when victory seemed impossible. They deliberately used inferior weapons to take on stronger opponents. They had something called guerrilla warfare that ignored all conventional military doctrine. They turned their weaknesses into strengths in ways that simply shouldn't work. And their current military doctrine? He asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. The display shifted to show modern human warfare theories. They had developed something called hybrid warfare that combined conventional weapons, economic warfare, psychological operations, and cyber attacks. They had weapons designed specifically to create fear rather than just destruction. They had turned their primitive internet into a weapon more effective than plasma cannons. But worst of all, they had spent centuries imagining and preparing for exactly this scenario. Their fiction, their military planning, their technological development, all of it seemed purposefully designed to combat a technologically superior alien force. One final query, Zix Thor said, his voice barely a whisper. Show me their theoretical weapons, the ones they've conceived but haven't built yet. The list that appeared made his blood run cold. Antimatter bombs, weaponized black holes, von Neumann machines, grey goo scenarios, things that no primitive species should even be able to conceptualize, let alone plan for. Delete this report, he ordered suddenly. Sir, the analyst's antennae twitched in confusion. Delete it, now. If the Council sees this, he left the thought unfinished. The Zar'kax Empire had strict protocols for dealing with potentially catastrophic threats to galactic stability. As the data wiped itself from the system, Zix Thor stared out at the seemingly peaceful blue planet below. What had they gotten themselves into? The fourth wave attack was supposed to be a demonstration of overwhelming force. Instead, it became a lesson in human insanity. Commander Zyx'thor watched in mounting horror as his carefully orchestrated assault fell apart. 30 capital ships, each carrying enough firepower to level a continent, moved into position above Earth's major military installations. The humans had to see the futility of resistance. They had to understand they were outmatched. They didn't. "Sir, multiple launches detected from the surface," Lieutenant Vexenar's voice cracked with tension. "Primitive missiles," Zix Thor dismissed. "The shields will—" The rest of his sentence died as he watched 3 of his ships simultaneously explode. Not from the missiles, which their shields had indeed stopped, but from something else, something that had approached from behind while they were focused on the obvious threat. "What in the void was that?" he demanded. "Sir, they used their own civilian aircraft as carriers, packed them with explosives and human pilots." Zix Thor's antennae went rigid. "The pilots ejected." "No, sir. They stayed with their craft until impact." Before he could process this madness, another alert blared. The humans had launched what appeared to be massive satellites directly at his fleet, but these weren't weapons. They were space stations, their own orbital habitats, turned into kinetic kill vehicles. "Evasive action," he ordered, but it was too late. The massive structures broke apart on impact with their shields, but that was apparently the humans' plan. Each station shattered into thousands of pieces, creating an expanding cloud of debris that their targeting systems couldn't track effectively. Behind this cloud came their actual attack. Multiple small craft approaching. They're using the debris field as cover. Human fighters darted through the chaos, their pilots pulling maneuvers that should have killed them through G-force alone. They weren't trying to destroy the Zar'kax ships. They were herding them, forcing them to adjust their positions constantly to avoid the debris. "Status report," Zix Thor demanded. 8 capital ships lost, 12 severely damaged. The humans are— "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies." A sound filled the command chamber. Music. The humans were playing music during battle. Something about never giving up and letting down. The psychological warfare was as bizarre as it was effective. "Sir, energy spike from the surface." Zix Thor turned all 4 eyes to the tactical display just in time to see something impossible. The humans had waited until his ships were precisely positioned, herded there by the debris and fighter screen. Then they fired what appeared to be a massive electromagnetic pulse, but it wasn't aimed at his ships, it was aimed at the debris field. The pieces of their space stations, now revealed to be made of highly magnetic materials, suddenly accelerated toward each other. His ships, caught in the middle, found themselves in a rapidly contracting sphere of magnetized metal. "Full power to engines," he ordered. "Get us out of—" Another explosion rocked the fleet. The humans had detonated nuclear weapons at precisely calculated points around the magnetic sphere, creating a plasma field that interfered with their engines. "Sir, we're losing ships 7 and 9 through 15. Their shields are failing under the debris impacts." The humans hadn't built a weapon to defeat their shields. They'd built a trap that made their shields irrelevant. Each impact was individually insignificant, but there were millions of them striking from every angle simultaneously. "Launch all fighters, clear us a path out of—" "Sir, the humans, they're ramming our fighter bays with nuclear-powered spacecraft. They're broadcasting more music, something about highway to hell." The tactical display became a nightmare of red indicators. Human submarines, previously undetected in the depths of their oceans, launched missiles upward through the chaos. Groundside railguns fired continuous streams of projectiles, not to penetrate their shields but to force them to keep them constantly active, draining power. "Status report, how many ships operational?" Lieutenant Vexenar's voice was barely a whisper. We've lost 23 capital ships. The rest are reporting critical damage. The humans, they're not trying to destroy us completely." "What?" "They're being selective. They're capturing damaged ships, taking prisoners, learning our technology. Sir, they're adapting our own weapons to use against us in real time." The main viewer showed the horror in perfect clarity. Human engineers, wearing primitive spacesuits, were already swarming over the wreckage of their fallen ships. Their tools and techniques evolved visibly with each passing moment as they learned from what they found. "Sir," a new voice edged with panic, "we're detecting quantum signature copies. They're replicating our quantum beacons." Zix Thor felt his exoskeleton grow cold. The humans weren't just fighting them. They were consuming them, learning them, becoming them. "All ships, emergency retreat. Get us out of this system." But even their retreat was costly. The humans had predicted their escape vectors, seeded them with more debris fields and gravitational mines. 5 more ships lost before they could make the jump to hyperspace. As the remnants of his once proud fleet limped away from the Sol system, Commander Zyx'thor stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. 30 capital ships, over 200,000 crew, all lost to a species that hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. But they would now. He had just handed them everything they needed to reverse engineer it. "Sir," Vexana approached cautiously, "the humans are broadcasting one final message." "What is it?" "They say, 'Thanks for the upgrades, come back any time.'" Commander Zyx'thor hadn't slept in 3 cycles. His crystalline exoskeleton had dulled from its usual lustrous blue to a sickly grey as he obsessively reviewed the battle footage. The command pod's holographic displays surrounded him with images of destruction, each more disturbing than the last. "Play it again," he commanded, his voice hoarse. "Sector 7, time index 2347. The display showed a human vessel, little more than a primitive metal tube, deliberately ramming one of their quantum-shielded battlecruisers. The human pilot was broadcasting something called rock music on all frequencies, laughing as they struck. The shield generators, designed to withstand energy weapons that could vaporize moons, had never been programmed to handle raw kinetic impact at that speed. "Freeze," his antennae twitched spasmodically. "Enhance the debris field." The image zoomed in, revealing something that made his thoracic cavity clench. The humans hadn't just destroyed the battlecruiser, they'd captured key pieces of it. Even as the battle raged, their engineers were already reverse engineering Zar'kax technology. "Show me their nuclear arsenal statistics." The display shifted, presenting a nightmare in numerical form. The humans possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet several times over. But that wasn't what made Zyx'thor's exoskeleton crack with stress. It was the variety, the innovation, the sheer insane creativity of their nuclear program. They had tactical nukes the size of briefcases, orbital platforms that could drop precisely calculated nuclear strikes, submarines carrying enough firepower to end civilization, lurking in oceans his sensors still couldn't properly penetrate, but worst of all, they had weapons they'd never built, theories and plans for nuclear devices that defied conventional physics. "Display their theoretical weapons development timeline." A new hologram appeared, showing human weapons research projections. They hadn't just planned for invasion, they'd methodically prepared for it. Every sci-fi movie, every space opera, every alien invasion story had been a thought experiment, a preparation for this moment. "Sir," Lieutenant Vexana approached cautiously, "we've decoded more of their internet traffic." "Show me." The new data stream made his blood run cold. Humans were already sharing technical drawings of Zar'kax technology on something called Reddit. Their scientists were crowdsourcing solutions to reverse engineer alien tech. They had memes, actual jokes about stealing their invaders' technology. Play the captured communications from Earth's military channels. The audio filled his pod. Human military leaders weren't panicking, they weren't demoralized, they were excited. Every captured piece of alien tech was being systematically studied, replicated, and improved upon. They treated the invasion not as a catastrophe, but as an opportunity. "Sir, there's more." Vexnar's antennae drooped. "We've detected unusual radiation signatures from their research facilities." The readings confirmed his worst fears. The humans weren't just copying their technology, they were hybridizing it, combining Zar'kax quantum fields with their primitive nuclear weapons. Integrating alien metals into their kinetic kill vehicles, they were evolving their warfare capabilities at an exponential rate. "Show me their adaptation curve." The graph that appeared defied all logic. Most species, when presented with advanced technology, took generations to understand and implement it. Humans were doing it in days. Their scientists worked in parallel, sharing information globally, each breakthrough immediately available to all. Play the final transmission from the stellar void. The last moments of their most advanced stealth ship appeared. The humans had somehow turned their own radio broadcasts into a detection grid. They'd created a planetary-scale sensor network out of primitive technology, then used it to track and capture a vessel that should have been invisible. A new alert flashed across his display. The humans had just tested their first quantum-enhanced nuclear device. The yield was beyond anything in their previous arsenal. They'd had the theoretical knowledge, they'd just lacked the materials he had helpfully provided. "Enough," Zix Thor's voice cracked. "Show me their population growth projections." The final data set broke him completely. Humans bred faster than any known sentient species. They adapted to any environment. They thrived on conflict. And now, thanks to his invasion, they had access to interstellar technology. The mathematics were brutal in their simplicity. At their current rate of technological absorption and population growth, combined with their newfound access to space travel, they would overrun the galaxy within centuries. "Delete everything," he ordered suddenly. "Sir?" Vexena's confusion was palpable. "Delete all records of their location, their capabilities, everything. No one can know what we found here. No one can know what we've unleashed." As the databases purged, Zix Thor stared at the final image. A human child playing with what appeared to be a toy version of one of his ships, making explosion sounds with their mouth. They had turned his invasion into entertainment, into games for their children, into inspiration for their next wave of innovations. "Ready my shuttle," he commanded. "I need to speak to the Council personally." The galaxy needed to know. Humanity wasn't just dangerous, they were contagious. The emergency council chamber of the Zar'kax Empire had never been so quiet. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned silence as Commander Zyx'thor concluded his presentation. His once pristine exoskeleton, now stress-fractured and grey, reflected the dim light as he delivered his final recommendation. "We must initiate Protocol Zero," he declared, his voice carrying none of its former pride. "The Sol system must be quarantined, permanently." Supreme Councillor Kexnar's antennae bristled. "You realize what you're suggesting? Protocol Zero hasn't been invoked since the Nightmare Wars." "With good reason," Zix Thor agreed, "but we have no choice. The humans—" His voice faltered. "The humans are unlike anything we've encountered." The holographic display showed their casualties again. 30 capital ships, 200,000 crew, billions in resources, all lost to a species that still thought digital watches were pretty neat. "But they're primitive," Councillor Mexithor protested. "They haven't even colonized their own solar system." "No," Zix Thor clicked his mandibles grimly, "but they will now, using our technology, improved by their insane innovation rate. Did you know they have an entire genre of entertainment dedicated to defeating alien invaders? They've been psychologically preparing for us for centuries." He activated another hologram showing human military response times. "Look at their adaptation curve. They don't just learn, they improvise. They don't just fight, they evolve. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every loss teaches them. Every ship we lost gave them centuries of technological advancement." "Surely we could simply sterilize their planet," another councillor suggested. "Our remaining fleet could—" "No," Zix Thor's vehemence startled even himself. "You don't understand. They're ready for that too. They have bunkers, seed vaults, contingency plans for every apocalyptic scenario. And worse, they have their own sterilization plans. They built enough nuclear weapons to destroy themselves 3 times over, just in case they needed to take an enemy with them." The council chamber's lights dimmed as he displayed his final evidence. "They have a concept they call mutually assured destruction. They pointed civilization-ending weapons at themselves for 50 years, playing a game of chicken with extinction, and they considered this normal." Supreme Councillor Kexanar's exoskeleton paled. "You believe they would? They would absolutely destroy themselves to destroy us, and based on their technological absorption rate, they'd probably find a way to survive it. And then they'd be angry." The council erupted in horrified clicks and whistles. The concept was alien to their logical minds. What species would risk their own extinction as a military doctrine? "There's worse," Zix Thor continued. "They're expanding. Now that they have our tech, their growth will be exponential. They reproduce faster than any known sentient species. They can survive in almost any environment. They treat combat as entertainment, and now—" He paused, mandibles clicking in distress. Now they know they're not alone in the universe, and they know they can beat us. The display showed projections of human expansion with their newly acquired technology. The growth curve was terrifying. If we don't quarantine them now, they'll spread. Every world they touch will become like them. Their chaos, their innovation, their insane military doctrine, it will infect the galaxy like a virus. The council chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Finally, Supreme Counselor Zyx'thor spoke. Protocol 0 is hereby initiated, she declared. The Sol system is now classified as a Class X prohibited zone. All records of its location will be purged from our databases. All survivors of the invasion will be sworn to secrecy. Let us pray to the void that the humans never develop their own FTL technology. As the council dispersed, Zix Thor remained staring at the final image, a human child's drawing of their battle, complete with crayon explosions and a smiling stick figure, surfing on what appeared to be a piece of his own ship's quantum drive. Sir, Lieutenant Vexenar approached. The quarantine beacons are ready for deployment. Zix Thor nodded. Deploy them, and Vexenar, add a message to the warning signal. Sir, just 3 words, leave them alone.